Our top story this morning, crypto markets crashed last night following news of the government introducing a bill in parliament that will prohibit all private cryptocurrencies in India, barring a few exceptions, to promote what it called the underlying technology of cryptocurrency and its uses. What are we talking about? Well, the Cryptocurrency and Regulation of Official Digital Currency Bill 2021 is set to be introduced in Parliament in the forthcoming winter session that starts on the 29th of November. The bill will prohibit all private cryptocurrencies in India. With certain exceptions, it's expected to be taken up for final consideration and passage during this winter session. The government says that the RBI, the Reserve Bank of India, will issue its own digital currency, and that security of investors' money and misleading advertisements in the media regarding the investment potential and risks have long been a cause of concern. The government has in fact held several meetings with all stakeholders to discuss the regulation of digital currencies. The Prime Minister has also chaired a high-level meeting with officials from various ministries and the RBI on the issue. In fact, recently, when speaking at the Sydney Dialogue, the Prime Minister had urged all countries to ensure that cryptocurrency does not end up in the wrong hands, which he said could spoil the future of our youth. The other big story this morning, Apple suing the Israeli spyware maker NSO, which is at the center of the Pegasus surveillance scandal. It's seeking to block the NSO Group from targeting over 1 billion iPhones that are in circulation. The suit from the Silicon Valley giant is adding to the trouble that the embattled NSO Group is already facing. It's been engulfed in controversy over reports that tens of thousands of activists, journalists and politicians were listed as potential targets of Pegasus spyware. In fact, US authorities just weeks ago blacklisted NSO to restrict exports from American groups over allegations that the firm had enabled foreign governments to conduct transnational repression. To prevent further abuse and harm to its users, Apple is seeking a permanent injunction that will ban the NSO Group from using any Apple software, services or devices. Apple has said in a statement announcing the lawsuit that's been filed in a federal court in California. The suit goes on to describe NSO as notorious hackers, amoral 21st century mercenaries who've created highly sophisticated cyber surveillance machinery that invites routine and flagrant abuse. In an unprecedented move, for the first time ever, the government of India is going to release 5 million barrels of crude oil from its strategic petroleum reserves. This release will happen in parallel and in consultation with other major global energy consumers, including the US, China, Japan and the Republic of Korea. President Joe Biden announced that he has ordered the release of 50 million barrels of oil from America's strategic reserves in a coordinated attempt with other countries to tamp down soaring fuel prices. The Government of India has reduced the central excise duty on petrol and diesel by 5 and 10 rupees respectively on the 3rd of November. This was followed by a reduction in VAT on fuel by many state governments as well. Prime Minister Modi will lay the foundation for Jewar Airport in Noida near Delhi on Thursday, barely 700 meters from a row of tents where farmers whose lands were acquired for the over 5,000 crore project are living with their families. Some of them say they didn't receive the land for the house that was promised by the government. Others say they haven't received any monetary compensation either. The local BJP MLA has admitted that the land acquisition was made in a hurry. All the residents of Rohi village had to relocate in order to make way for this airport. There are still 100 families who are living nearby in tents. One of the farmers, 45-year-old Ompal, has been living in a plastic tent, he says, for the last 3 years. He says he didn't get any kind of compensation whatsoever.
काफ़ी ठंड लगती है, 3 साल हो गए हम यहीं पे रहते ऐसे ही, ना ही प्लॉट दे रहे हैं, नहीं हमें ज़मीन का पैसा मिला, मुआवजा जो ट्रेजरी में जमा, 2 साल हो गए हमें फाइल लगाए हुए, नहीं हमें पशुओं के लिए जगह ज़मीन दी कुछ भी।
अधिकारी क्या कहते हैं आपसे?
क्या कर रहे हैं यही बोलते हैं।
समस्या ये है जी, हमें 5 साढ़े 5 लाख रुपए मिल गए हैं, हमें प्लॉट नहीं मिला, मकान का पैसा नहीं मिला, हम सर यही जे पढ़े झोपड़ी में बना के अपनी में जी डेली जाता हूँ मैं जेवर डेली अधिकारी इनके धोरे नु कह दे हाँ देंगे बस ये कह दे के छुट जाते हैं। कागज बिल्कुल तैयार है जी, देख सकते हो आप भी।
अंधेरे में रहते हैं जी सर, बहुत परेशान रहते हैं, पैसे नहीं गिरे अभी। बिजली नहीं, कुछ भी नहीं, काट ली, घर फोड़ दिए हमारे, बिजली काट दी, कुछ भी नहीं मिला और जंगल में पड़े मच्छर खाते हैं।
ये मेरी जगह है जी, मेरा मकान बना हुआ है जिसमें 250 गज में जी। हाँ, मुझे 50 मीटर का प्लॉट दिया है, उसमें मैं रहूं कि अपने पशु न रखूं, क्या करूं मैं? पशुओं से अपना गुजारा करते हैं जी फिलहाल।
तो पशु नहीं पाल सकते आप?
पशु वहाँ पर हम पाल नहीं सकते।
क्यों?
बस शर्त लिखी हुई है जी कि आप पशु बकरी भैंस कुछ नहीं पालोगे यहाँ पर।
देखिए, कोरोना की जो लहर आई उसकी वजह से हमें काफी दिक्कत हुई और जो टाइम लाइन थी हमारी वो बाधित हो गई। किसानों को जो विस्थापन हुआ है उसमें समय की और आवश्यकता थी। हम एक बहुत बड़े जेवर की तरफ बढ़ रहे हैं, उस बदलते जेवर की तरफ। तो अगर वहाँ मेरे किसान भाइयों को थोड़ी बहुत दिक्कत भी हो रही है तो मैं उनसे निवेदन करता हूँ कि हम एक बड़ी चीज के लिए छोटी चीजों को थोड़ा भूल जाएं और सहयोग करें इस क्षेत्र के विकास में।
Let's get you the latest on the rainfall situation in the southern states. A heavy to very heavy rain warning in Tamil Nadu. Warning for 3 days, which will start from Thursday onwards. Heavy to very heavy rain is also likely in Kerala and Andhra Pradesh from the 26th of November. But the rains have already ravaged Tamil Nadu and crop damage has been huge, as has damage to livelihood and property.
Over 50,000 hectares of standing crop has been battered by copious rains in Tamil Nadu that got 68% more rain this monsoon season. In Nagapattinam district, Rasappan has lost his ready-to-harvest paddy in 15 acres.
வீணாக போயிடுச்சு. நான் எப்படி நான் கடன் கொடுக்கறது, எப்படி சாப்பிட்றது? நகை நட்டெல்லாம் பேங்கில் கிடக்கு, இந்த நகை நட்டெல்லாம் மீட்டுக்கலாம், ஒரு வருஷம் சாவடி பண்ணலாம், இல்லைன்னா நிலம் தரிசாக தான் கிடக்கும்.
As 51 centimeters rain pounded the state since October, 2/3 of the state got flooded as the rains peaked with 2 successive spells in the second week of November. The worst hit Chennai, Viluppuram, Kadalur in the north, Kanyakumari and Thoothukudi in the south, and the Delta region in central Tamil Nadu. A central team is on a 4-day visit to assess the damage as the state has sought a 2,600 crore relief.
கடலூர் மாவட்டம் புயல், வெள்ளம், வறட்சி, சுனாமி போன்ற இயற்கை பேரழிவினால் பாதிக்கக்கூடிய மாவட்டமாக இருக்கிறது. நிரந்தர தீர்வை நோக்கி ஏற்பாடு செய்ய வேண்டும். ஆகவே இயற்கை பேரழிவு பாதித்த மாவட்டமாக அறிவிப்பு செய்து பேரழிவு பணிகளை துவங்க வேண்டும் என தமிழ்நாடு விவசாய சங்கத்தின் சார்பாக கேட்டுக்கொள்கின்றோம்.
The Chennai Corporation says they are better prepared now. Repair works over the last week, they say, will ensure minimal inundation at chronic low-lying hotspots.
We have actually tried a number of methods in order to ensure that alternate ways to pump out the water other than the pumping out through the motors to drain out the water. We have actually examined and we have taken up a lot of steps also in this regard.
The state braces for its 4th spell of rains from Wednesday, even as its reservoirs are overflowing and waters from neighbouring states compound the crisis. With enough waters for drinking and irrigation, for once people here want the cyclonic circulation to fizzle off. In Chennai with Suresh, Sam Daniel, for NDTV.
Welcome back to Good Morning India. As cases spiral in several parts of Europe, India's cases on Tuesday were the lowest they've been since May 2020. But vaccine wastage continues to remain a huge source of concern. Here's a special report.
India's active caseload stands at 1,13,584, lowest in 536.
We're having some technical trouble with that. We'll try and play out that story for you in a bit. For the moment, let's take a very quick break. Still ahead, our special focus as crypto prices see a massive crash after talk of a new bill by the government that seeks to ban all private cryptocurrencies. We'll have more on that big story in just a moment. As cases spiral in Europe, India's cases on Tuesday were the lowest they've been since May 2020. But vaccine wastage continues to be a huge cause of concern. Here's a report.
India reported 7,579 COVID cases in the last 24 hours, the lowest since May last year. India's active caseload stands at 1,13,584, lowest in 536 days. Weekly positivity rate 0.93%, less than 2% for last 60 days.
This empty COVID ward where I'm in is in one of the largest COVID hospitals across the country. These empty beds tell a tale of how India has reached from one of the worst phases of COVID-19 to COVID being almost under control. However, according to healthcare experts, there are a lot of cautions that we still have to take.
Dr. Ritu Saxena says this COVID ward, one of the largest in the country, is ready for the third wave, and despite the lowest cases in 1.5 years, they aren't wrapping this up.
कोविड के केसेस कम हो गए तो लोग मेंटली रिलैक्स हो गए, कोविड खत्म नहीं हुआ है तो डेफिनेटली देयर इज अ चांस कि कहीं दोबारा से केसेस में स्पाइक ना आ जाए, तो ये बिहेवियर तो हमें अपना एप्रोप्रिएट रखना पड़ेगा.
Experts say that the decline in COVID cases is paralleled by a rise in vaccine complacency.
If I was to say complacency, that is because you see large number of people are seeing now the number of cases have come down. They don't see many deaths happening and all that. So they think that COVID has gone out. This is a common thinking of a common man. You have to go and take your second dose of vaccine. That is important.
In Maharashtra, one of the worst hit by COVID, 23 districts including Pune, the world's biggest manufacturer of vaccines are wasting doses at a rate higher than the state's average. In addition, about 54 lakh doses are reportedly lying in private hospitals in Maharashtra. A major part of it is expiring in the next 2 to 3 months. Now, these are being moved out.
बहुत सारे प्राइवेट हॉस्पिटल्स के पास बहुत सारे टीकों के जो डोजेस थे वो बचे हुए हैं और उनके पास जो है वैक्सीनेशन का रेट कम हो गया है क्योंकि उनके पास आने वाला पॉपुलेशन जो है करीब करीब टीकाकरण उनका कंप्लीट हो चुका है, ऐसा माना जाता है. तो इन्होंने भी कॉर्पोरेट सोशल रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी के तहत, कुछ सोशल वर्क के तहत, कुछ कंसेशन के माध्यम से ये जो टीके हैं ऐसे लोगों को दिए हैं जिनके पास की आर्थिक समस्या हो, या तो ऐसे हॉस्पिटल्स में ट्रांसफर कर दिया है जहां पे कि टीकाकरण का रेट अभी अच्छा चल रहा है. ये लोग की पूरी कोशिश यही है कि टीके कोई भी वेस्ट ना हो.
Yet about 75 lakh people have not taken their second dose on time. Efforts are on to vaccinate them. With Akshay Dongre, Osama Shah for NDTV.
Well, there was a bit of a bright spot for Paytm after it lost a great deal of its market capitalization following its rather disastrous listing on the Lal Street. It's raised a lot of questions about sky-high valuations of companies. Let's take a look at the latest. The market's also snapping a 4-day losing streak.
The biggest ever IPO, Paytm, today saw an uptick of over 9% for the first time since the big crash on debut. But at 1,489.80 rupees a share, it is still 30.7% less than the issue price of 2,150 rupees per share. With current prices for at least 3 new listings being lower than the issue price, worries on valuations and the timing of listings is what is impacting the market mood. Valuations essentially reflect the current financial status of a stock and give a sense of profitability going forward. Some market experts believe the sentiment now has been spoiled.
After the Paytm IPO and its performance, there is a big question mark on valuations and it has spoiled the sentiments for future IPOs. We have to be careful, we have to be cautious. What are we actually paying in terms of price for the growth that is promised? We have to get that equation right as investors.
While reports suggest fintech firm MobiKwik, a rival to Paytm, may defer their IPO plan, MobiKwik tells NDTV the company is witnessing strong business growth, has a clear path to profitability and will list at the right time. A disclosure here that NDTV held minority stake in One MobiKwik Systems Limited and sold this stake in July 2021 as disclosed to the stock exchanges at the time. While Zomato, Nykaa and Policy Bazaar trade higher than their IPO issue price, There are, of course, concerns on their valuations and the fact that prices have already fallen from their highs. Shares of data analytics firm Latent View Analytics today opened at 160% premium compared to the offer price of 197 rupees a share and closed at 487.95 rupees per share, 147.7% higher. While this visual of yet another stellar debut for D Street is exciting, it is also a stark reminder that valuations are key. Sakshi Bajaj for NDTV.
Meanwhile, crypto markets crashed following news of the government introducing a bill in Parliament to prohibit all private cryptocurrencies in India, barring a few exceptions. The Cryptocurrency and Regulation of Official Digital Currency Bill 2021 is set to be introduced in Parliament's winter session starting on the 29th of November. The bill is expected to prohibit all private cryptocurrencies in India. The government says the Reserve Bank of India will issue its own digital currency, and the security of investors' money and misleading advertisements in the media regarding investment potential and risks have long been a cause of concern. The government, of course, has had several meetings with all stakeholders to discuss the regulation of digital currencies. The Prime Minister had also chaired a high-level meeting with officials from various ministries and the RBI on the issue. What is this going to mean for the future of cryptocurrencies in India? Well, joining us this morning, we have Rohas Nagpal, author of the Future Money Playbook, Chief Blockchain Architect of Wrapped Asset Project. Thanks very much for being with us. PM Mishra, legal expert, FinTech and Blockchain, Managing Partner, FinLaw, is also with us, as is Ritam Gupta, joining us from Dubai this morning, a blockchain entrepreneur and CEO and director of DeFi11 and Nonceblocks. Thank you all. This is something we're going to be talking about for some time now. But PM Mishra, if I can come to you first, why do you believe the Indian government is now proposing to prohibit all private cryptocurrencies altogether?
Good morning. It's like, in my view, as far as the definition of private cryptocurrency, what exactly government is thinking about that and what exactly the definition for them, that matters a lot.
Right.
Till now, we are only talking about it's a proposed bill. Let them discuss about it. For me, private cryptocurrency means the definition can vary. Is it a privacy coin? Are they talking about privacy coin? Or they are talking about something which is owned by a private entity? If you are talking about a private entity owned by the coin owned by a private entity, then the game in that case is totally different. There are several currencies that nobody has owned it. They are decentralized. Then I will wait for the day when they clearly discuss it in the parliament, what they mean by private cryptocurrency and what are the exceptions they are talking about. So I'm not in a hurry. I'll wait for the bill to be discussed.
Okay, fair enough.
That's what I feel like.
You're saying we still don't have all the details of this bill or its provisions.
True.
But, Ritam Gupta, let me bring you in. Does banning private cryptocurrency, from what we understand right now, in terms of all private cryptocurrencies being banned, does this harm investors' interests, in your opinion? The government has already talked about it being highly volatile, that there are misleading advertisements on private cryptocurrencies in the media, that they're worried. The Prime Minister has gone on record to say, this should not fall in the wrong hands. It could ruin the future of our youth. Now, these are very strong statements to make. What do you make of this?
According to me, this is not something that's the right thing to do, and not even feasible. I mean, you are really, by banning private cryptocurrencies, you are really taking out the essence of blockchain or taking out the essence of crypto from the entire market. I read a statement from the PM saying that we are in process of banning it so that we can promote the underlying technology. And underlying technology behind crypto is blockchain. And that really implies, or blockchain really makes it decentralized, transparent, and not really a centralized thing, right? So if you are banning all the private cryptos and just getting a centralized crypto in place so that you can regulate it somehow, I won't call it regulation. I would rather call it taking out the essence of blockchain from the entire crypto world or from the entire decentralized world. So this is now this is not how it should be done.
But the government argues that it's trying to safeguard investor interests.
No, you cannot really safeguard investors' interest in a manner wherein you say, okay, we are banning everything and just one private crypto is there. None of the investors are going to come over there. None of the retail investors, none of the big investors are going to accept that. If in case you just simply ban it unilaterally and not really following the essence, it does not really make sense. In my opinion, this is something that needs to be thought of. And as Mr. Mishra said, that we are still far away from getting something concrete.
Okay.
So till the time we don't really understand what the government has stated or what the government is deciding, we still need something concrete to be...
There's certainly something to be said for caution. We don't know the exact contours of this bill yet. So absolutely, and it's going to be discussed, debated in Parliament at length. But at the end of the day, and if I can bring Mr. Nagpal into this, we already have an approximate 10 crore crypto investors in India. What's going to happen to them if crypto, in fact, if all private cryptocurrencies do get banned? In that scenario, what do you expect to see?
Sure. So actually, I am in favor of certain kinds of cryptos being banned, especially the privacy coins. And I'm sure if the government decides to implement the ban, it's not going to be overnight and people would be given time to liquidate their holdings. So I don't really foresee too many people being affected. And I'm also very skeptical about these numbers of 10 crore investors.
Okay,
I think the actual numbers are far lower than that.
Okay. But there are many who are now sort of raising questions about whether what we are seeing is India effectively following the Chinese model of having one centralized digital currency and not having other operators in the market at all. Ritam Gupta, do you see it going that way? What would be your concerns, if any, if that indeed happens?
I won't say it's going that way, but then it's mimicking that entire play that the Chinese government did. If in case that happens, I think we are actually moving towards, I would say, just as we had demonetization to regulate the entire cash flow, that yielded us some of the goods, but then there were a lot of cons associated to it. Similarly, if we go forward doing this, I would still say the negative impact that we are gonna leave on the entire investor community, the retail investors, it's gonna, like, even if you see, just as it was announced, the entire market crashed. All the smaller investors or the retail investors, they lost a lot of money. So it is actually taking out the interest of all those people who were developing their portfolios, who were getting into crypto. And that's the only reason you get to have a mass adoption. If you just get or take out all these retail investors from crypto, you're not going to get the mass adoption coming in for blockchain any soon, right? So that's what I believe that.
So PM Mishra, do you agree with Ritam Gupta when he says this could in fact affect the entire ecosystem for new age fintech?
See, frankly speaking, as far as if the blanket ban will come into place, yeah, right now cryptocurrency is a part of fintech. Still, I have few doubts about it, but yeah, it's there. And as far as India is concerned, people are talking about 10 crores investor. Maybe I would not believe that it's 10 crores. Okay. Maybe it's lesser than that, but still then, cryptocurrency is a part, and even institutional investors, they are taking interest. Yeah. And it will impact the ecosystem for sure. But at the end of the day, I would still believe government will not take, they will not take that kind of measure like China has taken. Whereas they will not go for blanket ban. They will give some space. So I do believe investors should not be so much panicked as far as about the news about listing out the bill and all.
Okay.
Let's wait for some
Okay,
time.
let's wait, you say, and of course we do have to wait for more details of the contours of this bill. But Rohas Nagpal, we have heard, the RBI governor raise several concerns about cryptocurrencies. There seems to have been certain, some amount of negativity about what private cryptocurrencies are doing right now. So, where do you see all this headed?
Sure. So, like I said, most cryptos are not actually currencies. There are about 13,000 cryptos in 11 categories. Only some of them fall under the definition of currency.
Right.
And I totally understand the need for the government to regulate or maybe even ban these outright. And as a blockchain developer, I can tell you, most of the people I see in the market today are not investors, they are speculators. And honestly, them leaving this industry is probably going to be good for the industry and not bad. I know it may sound very contradictory to what the others say, but then that's what I believe.
Right. But would you say that, I suppose my question to you is, what happens to those who have already invested? Should it be left up to investors to decide for themselves? Do you believe that one centralized digital currency is the way forward, or is this going to be taking a step back? I mean, it's not legal tender in any country in the world except for El Salvador. But at the end of the day, in the distant future, or perhaps in the near future, when cryptocurrencies become, if they do indeed become legal tender, is India going to be left behind in a situation like that?
No, not at all. Absolutely not. And I'm strongly against the concept of trying to use cryptos as currencies, especially in a country like ours. I believe the only kind of cryptos we really need as a country are utility coins, which are powering individual blockchain products. Other than that, the way this 100 rupees, buy crypto in 100 rupees, those kind of ads, they bring the wrong kind of people into the market who are going to completely get slaughtered and lose all their money. So crypto requires a very high level of sophistication,
right,
technologically as well as financially. And I think most of the common people should absolutely not venture into trying to be crypto investors or speculators.
All right, we'll leave it at that for now. No doubt we are going to be talking about it as more information is forthcoming. Also, thank you all for joining us this morning on Good Morning India. There's been a significant crash in domestic crypto markets following news of the government introducing a bill in Parliament to prohibit all private cryptocurrencies in India. Now, the Cryptocurrency and Regulation of Official Digital Currency Bill 2021 is set to be introduced in Parliament in the winter session that starts on the 29th of November. The bill is expected to prohibit all private cryptocurrencies in India with certain exceptions. It's expected to be taken up for final consideration and passage. The government says the Reserve Bank of India will issue its own digital currency. Arvind joining us at this point. Arvind, what do we know right now about the contours of this bill and what it's going to mean for the crypto market?
And Kita, the legislative business for the upcoming winter session of the Parliament is out, and in that particular legislative business, the government has listed almost 26 bills that the government is proposing to introduce in the upcoming winter session. Out of this 26 bills that have been listed for introduction and moving in the upcoming winter session, one of the bills is this cryptocurrency bill. The bill relates to cryptocurrency bill. So the objective of this particular bill states that the government is planning to prohibit all the private cryptocurrencies, barring with few exceptions, and they are also trying to come up with RBI issued official digital currency. So these are the contours of the bill that we have got as of this moment. But a very important point is a similar kind of bill with similar kind of objective was also listed earlier in the year during the budget session also, but that was not moved by the government. But the same bill, a similar bill with a similar objective has also been listed this time also for the upcoming winter season. So we have to wait and watch whether the government has changed its stand after the last meeting with the stakeholders of the private cryptocurrencies, because in that particular statement, the government has used the term that they would be regulating this particular domain, this particular cryptocurrencies. They have not told anything about banning completely in toto all this private cryptocurrencies. So we have to wait for the draft of the final bill to see what will be the extent, to what extent the government is going to regulate all this unregulated private cryptocurrencies. Ankita?
All right, Arvind, thanks very much indeed. Not that many details available clearly at this point, but Arvind, do stay with us for the other big story we're reporting this morning, and that's Apple suing the Israeli spyware maker that's at the center of the Pegasus surveillance scandal. It's in fact seeking to block the NSO Group from targeting iPhone users. There are about 1 billion iPhones in circulation. Now, this lawsuit from Apple adds to the trouble that's already confronting the embattled NSO Group, engulfed in controversy over reports that thousands of activists, journalists and politicians were potential targets of its Pegasus spyware. US authorities have blacklisted NSO to restrict exports from American groups over allegations that the firm enabled foreign governments to conduct what has been described as transnational repression. Well, Apple's statement says to prevent further abuse and harm to its users, Apple is seeking a permanent injunction to ban the NSO Group from using its software services or devices. Big development there, Arvind?
Yeah, Ankita, after WhatsApp, now Apple has also taken NSO Group, which has developed this Pegasus spyware, to the US court. So a suit has been filed by the Apple company in the California District Court. In that particular suit, Apple is saying that the modus operandi that was used by Pegasus or by the NSO Group was to create this Pegasus spyware, which according to the Apple company, that this is a mercenary spyware. So this the NSO Group, acting at the behest of some government clients, created this Pegasus spyware, and that was transmitted to the target device, delivered to the target devices through iMessages. So once the Pegasus spyware reached or entered into the target device, then it started transmitting the personal information of a target device to the command center or the control center of the NSO Group, which is being handled by the government clients in this particular case. And in some cases, the government, the command or the control center even went to an extent of controlling or switching on microphone or the cameras of the targeted device. So this is the modus operandi that the Apple has explained in its suit, and the Apple has also said that for this particular modus operandi, NSO Group had created more than 100 Apple IDs, because unless until the command center also has an Apple ID, the iMessages, the messages cannot be transmitted to the target device through iMessages. So for this particular modus operandi, or to deliver, to attack a target device, the NSO Group had created more than hundreds of Apple IDs. So according to the Apple company, that because once you have to create an Apple ID, you have to comply with the terms and conditions of Apple. But NSO Group had violated those terms and conditions also, and then they have also damaged the target device by taking away the personal information or personal data of the targeted device. So these are the allegations that NSO Group, the Apple has leveled against NSO Group. For that, now Apple has said that NSO Group should give all the information regarding the devices that they have compromised, the Apple devices that they have compromised, and they have also sought an injunction that the NSO Group should never use Apple devices from forever. So these are the prayers that Apple has sought, and Apple has also told in a statement that they would be notifying the users whose devices have been compromised through this particular Pegasus spyware of NSO Group. So this is not the first time an NSO Group has been taken to to the US court. This is the second time after WhatsApp that NSO Group has been taken to the US court.
All right, Arvind, thank you for joining us on both those big stories. In an unprecedented move, for the first time ever, the government of India is going to release 5 million barrels of crude oil from its strategic petroleum reserves. This release will happen in consultation with other major global energy consumers, including America, China, Japan, and the Republic of Korea. President Joe Biden has ordered the release of 50 million barrels of oil from America's strategic reserves in a coordinated attempt with other countries to tamp down soaring fuel prices. US oil had fallen 1.9% to $75 a barrel post that announcement, but then recovered as well. And similarly in other markets as well.
Even if you have a big announcement like today, the market typically discounts that because they look into the future. And the market is already trading the contract of January and February. So by January and February, this SPR release will be over. Right, so that is one thing to take into consideration. The second point that I would like to make is that much more relevant, in my view, for the market will be OPEC meeting next week. This is where we will find out whether they are affected by the SPR decision, and the SPR decision makes them change their mind regarding their strategy going forward.
South India is bracing for more heavy rainfall just days after massive rains and floods. There's a heavy to very heavy rain warning in Tamil Nadu. The warning is for 3 days starting Thursday, that's tomorrow. Heavy to very heavy rain is likely in Kerala and Andhra Pradesh from the 26th of November. Well, rains have already ravaged Tamil Nadu and crop damage has been huge, as has been the damage to livelihood and property. Here's a special report.
Over 50,000 hectares of standing crop has been battered by copious rains in Tamil Nadu that got 68% more rain this monsoon season. In Nagapattinam district, Rasappan has lost his ready-to-harvest paddy in 15 acres.
நான் எப்படி நான் கடன் கொடுக்கறது எப்படி சாப்பிட்றது நகை நட்டெல்லாம் பேங்கில் கிடக்கு இந்த நகை நட்டெல்லாம் மீட்டுக்கலாம் ஒரு வருஷம் சாவடி பண்ணலாம் இல்லைன்னா நிலம் தரிசாக தான் கிடக்கும்.
As 51 centimeters rain pounded the state since October, 2/3 of the state got flooded as the rains peaked with 2 successive spells in the second week of November. The worst hit, Chennai, Viluppuram, Kadalur in the north, Kanyakumari and Thoothukudi in the south, and the Delta region in central Tamil Nadu. A central team is on a 4-day visit to assess the damage as the state has sought a 2,600 crore relief.
கடலூர் மாவட்டம் புயல், வெள்ளம், வறட்சி, சுனாமி போன்ற இயற்கை பேரிடரினால் பாதிக்கக்கூடிய மாவட்டமாக இருக்கிறது. நிரந்தர தீர்வை நோக்கி ஏற்பாடு செய்ய வேண்டும். ஆகவே இயற்கை பேரழிவு பாதித்த மாவட்டமாக அறிவிப்பு செய்து பேரழிவு பணிகளை துவங்க வேண்டும் என தமிழ்நாடு விவசாய சங்கத்தின் சார்பாக கேட்டுக்கொள்கிறோம்.
The Chennai Corporation says they are better prepared now. Repair works over the last week, they say, will ensure minimal inundation at chronic low-lying hotspots.
We have actually tried a number of methods in order to ensure that alternate ways to pump out the water other than the pumping out through the motors to drain out the water. We have actually examined and we have taken up a lot of steps also in this regard.
The state braces for its 4th spell of rains from Wednesday, even as its reservoirs are overflowing and waters from neighbouring states compound the crisis. With enough waters for drinking and irrigation, for once, people here want the cyclonic circulation to fizzle off. In Chennai with Suresh, Sam Daniel, for NDTV. Joining us now, Greater Chennai Corporation Commissioner, Mr. Gagandeep Singh Bedi. Sir, thank you very much for your time. There's a forecast for heavy to very heavy rainfall over the next 3 days. Quantum-wise, how much are we expecting?
You see, the meteorological department has already given a broad advisory about the rains, and we are also seeing from various other sites also. In fact, initial information to us is that it might rain continuously for 2 to 3 days, of course in intermittently, but it will be 3 days we are expecting to be a good rainy season. So already we have had 3 rounds of heavy rains this month. And we have already installed more than 750 pumps in the low-lying places. We have not dismantled those pumps and motors, submersible motors, and they are all in the place. Chronic places which get inundated, we have actually tried a number of methods in order to ensure that alternate ways to pump out the water other than the pumping out through the motors to drain out the water. We have actually examined and we have taken up a lot of steps also in this regard. The main purpose is that the people should be put to least hardship during this period.
Any lessons learned from this experience, the last 2 experiences?
See, every rains there is something new to learn for a local body, and yes, Greater Chennai Corporation also has the issues to learn, because with the city expanding, the new areas coming under inundation because of construction, some drains collapsing, etc. So we know which are the pain points across the city, and we have consciously put teams under the leadership of chief engineers and superintending engineers in various places where we anticipate water inundation to mitigate the effects of inundation, so as to, as I have already said, reduce the problem to the local community.
One last question, in terms of long-term solutions, is there a need to study each and every hotspots, inundation hotspots, and to arrive at a scientific solution?
Yes, definitely yes. And it always should be yes, because with whatever the infrastructure that a local body is having, including the stormwater drainage infrastructure, road infrastructure, etc., as the population expands, as the city expands, we need to upgrade ourselves. So the city corporation the last few months has upgraded, because of which a number of problematic places are no longer problematic for the city. After the rains are over, definitely the Greater Chennai Corporation will take further steps to augment its infrastructure, especially the stormwater drainage infrastructure.
Thank you so much for your time. That was Mr. Gagandeep Singh Bedi, the Greater Chennai Corporation Commissioner, talking to us in Chennai with Suresh, Sam Daniel, Find the TV.
While there was no rain in Bengaluru or other parts of Karnataka on Tuesday, there was no respite from the flooding. As the water receded a little, the situation in affected areas was still very far from normal. Maya Sharma with that report.
A sunny day after a long time in Bengaluru. But residents of this large apartment complex in Yelahanka are leaving. In boats, in cars, or wading through the water left by incessant rain that has still not drained away.
Absolutely no water.
No water, no electricity?
No electricity. I had a UPS and little water filled in.
Yes.
But that's not enough. We are finding it very difficult.
So you're leaving and going
Honestly
somewhere else?
speaking, I didn't even brush my teeth today.
Temporary measures like this, the breaking of the compound wall to make sure that the water can in fact leave the apartment complex. Chief Minister Basavaraj Bommai, who spoke to the Prime Minister about the flood damage in the state, visited the apartment complex.
We are all clearing it, and we are taking a lot of permanent measures like making main drain clear and building new drains.
The 25-year-old apartments house thousands of people and is built close to the Yelahanka lake bed. Encroached lake beds and blocked stormwater drains have seen repeated floods in this landlocked city. The Jawaharlal Nehru Centre for Advanced Scientific Research, also near a lake, saw water entering the labs for the very first time. Damage is still being assessed at the Multidisciplinary Research Institute.
The lake is now, just showing its presence right in the campus. So the campus itself looks like part of the lake itself. But first time we have had the water entry into the lab, and that has caused a lot of damage. Problem is with respect to the samples, particularly the biological samples. And besides that, we have very sophisticated instruments all around the campus here. And some of the sophisticated instruments are now have seen, water levels and also moist conditions, which are not good for the health of the instruments.
The Manyata Tech Park was also badly flooded and also built in a very vulnerable spot right in a valley. This is certainly not the first time that landlocked Bengaluru has seen flooding. The reasons: buildings coming up on lake beds, coming up on storm water drains, encroachment of these lakes and drains causing that flooding. The Chief Minister has promised permanent solutions, and the residents of the city can only hope that will actually happen. With DM Kumar, Maya Sharma in Bengaluru for NDTV.
News from battleground Uttar Pradesh now, where the Rashtriya Lok Dal's Jayant Chaudhary and SP's Akhilesh Yadav have shared photos of meeting each other on Twitter, almost at the same time hinting that the alliance between their parties is almost sealed. Sanket gets us the details.
So is an RLD-SP alliance on the cards for Western Uttar Pradesh to trump the Bharatiya Janata Party? Well, final talks on the number of seats for the polls are awaited as of this moment. But if you look at these pictures, which were released both by Jayant Chaudhary as well as Akhilesh Yadav, it's very clear that there is some sort of bonhomie, and this pact is almost certain that alliance is going to be sealed. Really what is being worked out is the number of seats and where all which political party is going to contest. Now, sources say that the RLD could contest on 36 seats, largely in Western UP. We're also learning that SP leaders may contest on RLD symbol from 2 to 3 seats. Now this is something which the RLD and the Samajwadi Party have tried out in the past as well, and it seems to have worked. So this is a very amicable solution which has delivered results in the past also for both these parties. Now in Western UP, this is and the Samajwadi Party knows it is not a great stronghold for the Samajwadi Party. There is a 17% Jat population in Western UP which could give RLD a winning edge, and the BJP as a result of that is all out to woo the Jats of Western Uttar Pradesh to pose as RLD's big challenge or a big challenger. So the only way the SP-RLD alliance can compete is when they are not working at cross purposes. So that is one of the compulsions, one of the points that this alliance is looking at. Now farm law rollback is an attempt by the BJP at anger management. Remember, there are 17% Jats in this area. The Jat dominated farm agitation by the Tikats was happening exactly in this area. So the BJP is looking at managing this anger. Tikat, Muslims and the Khats have been leading Mahapanchayats in all of Western UP for the past 1 year now. Could there be a grand culmination of that in the form of votes? Now Akhilesh has partnered with OP Rajbhar for alliance in Eastern UP. This is an alliance in Western UP. So can alliance partnerships help Akhilesh propel to power in 2022, or could he meet the same fate as 2017 and 2012 when he partnered but failed?
Prime Minister Modi will lay the foundation for the Jewar airport in Noida near Delhi on Thursday. Now, the project that's being pegged at over 10,000 crore rupees is being projected as one of the big achievements of the Adityanath government. It's being touted as an engine for Uttar Pradesh's overall growth in the next few years. But barely 700 meters from where this glitzy new airport will come up is a row of tents where farmers whose lands were acquired for this project are living with their families. Some of them say they didn't receive the land for the houses they were promised by the government. Others say they're yet to receive any compensation at all. The local BJP MLA has in fact admitted that the land acquisition happened in a hurry. All the residents of Rohi village had to relocate to make way for the airport. But 100 families are now still living there in tents. There's no water in the area. Electricity too has been disconnected.
काफ़ी ठंड लगती है। 3 साल हो गए हम यहीं पे रहते ऐसे ही, कब ना ही प्लॉट दे रहे हैं, नहीं हमें ज़मीन का पैसा मिला मुआवजा जो ट्रेजरी में जमा। 2 साल हो गए हमें फाइल लगाए हुए, नहीं हमें पशुओं के लिए जगह ज़मीन दी कुछ भी। अधिकारी क्या कहते हैं आपसे? के कर रहे हैं यही बोलते हैं।
समस्या ये है जी, हमें 5-5.5 लाख रुपए मिल गए हैं, हमें प्लॉट नहीं मिला, मकान का पैसा नहीं मिला। हम सर यही जो पड़े झोपड़ी में बना के अपनी में जी डेली जाता हूँ मैं जेवर, डेली अधिकारी इनके धोरे नु कह दे हाँ देंगे बस ये कह दे के छुट जाते हैं। कागज बिल्कुल तैयार है जी, देख सकते हो आप भी।
अंधेरे में रहते हैं जी सर, बहुत परेशान रहते हैं, पैसे नहीं गिरे अभी। बिजली नहीं, कुछ भी नहीं, काट ली, घर फोड़ दिए हमारे, बिजली काट दी, कुछ भी नहीं मिला और जंगल में पड़े मच्छर खाते हैं।
ये मेरी जगह है जी, मेरा मकान बना हुआ है जिसमें 250 गज में जी। हाँ, मुझे 50 मीटर का प्लॉट दिया है, उसमें मैं रहूं कि अपने पशु न रखूं, क्या करूं मैं? पशुओं से अपना गुजारा करते हैं जी फिलहाल। तो पशु नहीं पाल सकते आप? पशु वहाँ पर हम पाल नहीं सकते। क्यों? बस शर्त लिखी हुई है जी कि आप पशु बकरी भैंस कुछ नहीं पालोगे यहाँ पर।
देखिए, कोरोना की 2 जो लहर आई उसकी वजह से हमें काफी दिक्कत हुई और जो टाइमलाइन थी हमारी वो बाधित हो गई। किसानों को जो विस्थापन हुआ है उसमें समय की और आवश्यकता थी। हम एक बहुत बड़े जेवर की तरफ बढ़ रहे हैं, उस बदलते जेवर की तरफ। तो अगर वहाँ मेरे किसान भाइयों को थोड़ी बहुत दिक्कत भी हो रही है तो मैं उनसे निवेदन करता हूँ कि हम एक बड़ी चीज के लिए छोटी चीजों को थोड़ा भूल जाएं और सहयोग करें इस क्षेत्र के विकास में और अपने आने वाली पीढ़ियों के लिए।
All right, that was the local MLA of the BJP saying that he asks farmers who are currently living in tents to really suffer perhaps in the greater good. Let's take this across to our panel this morning. We're being joined by Shant Prakash Jatav, leader of the BJP. Ameek Jame, national spokesperson of the Samajwadi Party, is also with us. Ambar Zaidi, political analyst, is with us. We're also going to be joined by Pankuri Pathak of the Congress. But Mr. Jatav, let me begin with you. This is obviously a very major project. It's being really projected as a showcase project by the Uttar Pradesh government. It's clearly one of its achievements that it would like broadcast ahead of the 2022 elections. But can you expect these farmers, 100 farmer families, to live in the cold in this winter in a tent? Their land has been acquired for the airport. Why has compensation not been given? Why has land not been given? Why have alternative homes not been given?
दुनिया का चौथा सबसे बड़ा एयरपोर्ट जेवर में उत्तर प्रदेश को मिलने जा रहा है, देश को मिलने जा रहा है। इसमें हम सब लोगों को खुश होना चाहिए, बधाई सबको। राजनाथ सिंह जी के समय में इसको शुरू करने की योजना बनी थी, उसके बाद तमाम सरकारें आईं, उन सरकारों ने अड़चनें लगाई, कोई इसको उठा करके आगरा ले जाना चाहते थे, ये बाधित होता रहा। जैसे ही योगी सरकार आई तो योगी जी ने भूमि अधिग्रहण का कार्य शुरू किया और जल्द से जल्द ज्यादा से ज्यादा भूमि अधिग्रहित हो जाए उसके लिए कार्य करते हुए अभी पहले चरण की भूमि अधिग्रहित कर ली गई है और जिसका उद्घाटन कल जो है माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी करने जा रहे हैं। 2024 में पहला चरण जो है शुरू हो जाएगा और यहाँ से फ्लाइट उड़ना शुरू हो जाएंगी। स्वाभाविक बात है, जब इस प्रकार के बड़े प्रोजेक्ट होते हैं तो भूमि अधिग्रहण भी होगी और भी तमाम सब चीजें जो लोगों को जिनकी भूमियां ली जाएंगी उनको भूमि उसके एवज में दी भी जाएगी। ये पूरा कार्य नियम से चलेगा। जो किसान बंधु अभी परेशान हैं वो विचलित ना हो, हम उनके साथ हैं। हमारे क्षेत्रीय विधायक और वहां का जो हमारा प्रशासन है वो उनको पूरा सहयोग कर रहा है। कुछ दिन में जो उनकी समस्या है वो सब जो है उनकी दुरुस्त कर दी जाएगी।
जी जाटव
वहां
जी,
पर सुविधा के लिए चीज दी जा रही है।
हम मानते हैं आपकी बात, लेकिन ये कह रहे हैं कि 3 साल से ये टेंट में रह रहे हैं यहाँ पे। 3 साल क्यों लग गए?
बिल्कुल ठीक बात है। जब हम किसी चीज को शुरू करते हैं तो सारे सिस्टम को बनाने में थोड़ा समय लग जाता है। जो किसान बंधु वहां परेशान हो रहे हैं, मैं समझता हूं आज जिस तरीके से हम लोग इस चैनल पर इस विषय पर बात कर रहे हैं, बहुत जल्दी जो है उनकी समस्या का निदान हो जाएगा।
पर जाटव जी, आपके एमएलए कह रहे हैं कि कुछ जल्दबाजी हुई है यहाँ पे, ये कोविड पैंडेमिक की वजह से कुछ डिलेज भी हुए थे और उसके बाद देयर हैज बीन अ सर्टेन rushing through in the process of land acquisition. Do you agree with that assessment and could this have been done differently?
बिल्कुल ठीक बात है। 2 साल हम लोगों ने पैंडेमिक को झेला है, सारे काम बाधित हुए, सब लोग परेशान हुए। इसमें कोई एमएलए जो हैं उन्होंने कोई गलत बात नहीं कही है। हर चीज बाधित थी, पूरी दुनिया की मशीनरी रुकी हुई थी। अब हम फिर दोबारा धरने पर चल रहे हैं, बहुत जल्दी इन सब चीजों से निजात मिलेगी।
Amit Jamid, do you accept this assessment that yes, for the greater good of Uttar Pradesh, this is going to be an engine of growth, it's going to generate 1 lakh job opportunities, and for that, if a few hundred farmers have to suffer or live in tents, is that an acceptable proposition?
ये अंकिता, जो एनडीटीवी की जो रिपोर्ट है, ग्राउंड रिपोर्ट, वो बहुत ही हिला देने वाली रिपोर्ट है। सवाल ये है कि जो लैंड एक्विजिशन एक्ट का जो वायलेशन है, जिस तरह से केंद्र की सरकार इसको कर रही है, अगर मैं अंकिता आपको 2 एग्जाम्पल्स दूं, आप इसे एग्री करेंगी कि हमारे नेता जब मुख्यमंत्री थे जनाब अखिलेश यादव जी, उन्होंने लखनऊ से लेकर आगरा का एक्सप्रेसवे बनाया, सरकार के समय में बनाया। उसका शुरुआत हुआ और उसका जो है उसका उद्घाटन हुआ। उसके बाद हमने पूर्वांचल एक्सप्रेसवे का लैंड एक्विजिशन का एक बड़ा हिस्सा जब हमने किया, आप सोचेंगी कि भारत का वो पहला एक्विजिशन था कि जहां पर किसान का कोई भी एक प्रोटेस्ट नहीं हुआ। वो प्रोटेस्ट क्यों नहीं हुआ? आप बेशक डेवलपमेंट करो, लेकिन अगर हमारे देश का किसान परेशान होगा, अगर उसके साथ आप न्याय नहीं करोगे, तो कांग्रेस का क्या हुआ पूरे देश के अंदर? लैंड एक्विजिशन एक्ट के तहत जिस तरह से बिग कॉर्पोरेशंस को, चाहे वो पॉस्को उड़ीसा का रहा हो प्रोजेक्ट, चाहे वो देश भर में जो लैंड एक्विजिशन हुए कॉर्पोरेशन के हक में, और किसानों को उनको जमीन नहीं दी गई, उनको अल्टरनेटिव नहीं दिया गया, उनको कॉम्पेंसेशन नहीं दिया गया। तो पूरे देश में किसानों का एक बड़ा विद्रोह आंदोलन खड़ा हुआ। सवाल ये है कि हमारे प्रधानमंत्री जी नरेंद्र मोदी साहब जो पूरे देश में किसानों का मुखालफत झेल रहे हैं, तो अगर आपके पास पैसे की कमी तो है नहीं, आप सारी सरकारी एयरपोर्ट्स को निजी हाथों में बेचने में तो 24 घंटा नहीं लगाते हो, लेकिन हमारे किसान को उनका हकूक देने में हम पूछ रहे हैं आपको दिक्कत क्या है? 5 साल से किसान वहां पे सड़कों पर बिलख रहा है, उसको छत नहीं है। अभी तो ठंड आने वाली है अंकिता, आप जरा सोचो कि उनके बच्चे उस प्लास्टिक के शेड में रह रहे होंगे।
Okay, let's open this up. Let's open this up. Amber Zaidi, respond to the points being made by the Samajwadi Party spokesperson. You know, at the end of the day, you can talk about numbers all you want and, you know, this is for the greater good. But at the end of the day, 100 families are going to be left out in the cold this winter. Are we not to spare a thought for them? Considering that 160 odd acres are being left for real estate development as part of this project, could something not have been organized for them? The allegation also from the farmers is that their land was reclassified as urban land. They would have got 4 times the compensation had it remained classified as rural land, and that they've actually been done out of the money, some of which hasn't even been disbursed yet.
First of all, I would like to attend to that number one issue. Like, then I'll come to the mic. What he was claiming actually, and I'll come to it. According to CEO for Yamuna Express and Development Authority, more than 9% of the families affected by the airport project have already started constructing their houses. And the rehabilitation announces that there has been constructing near the Jewar airport area. Out of 3,003 plots that have already been allocated to Jewar from the township, it has been already under construction, and so many people have already.
At the end of the day, what about these people? You've heard their first-person accounts now. Some of them are saying they've been living in a tent for 3 years now without any alternative land being given to them. Where do they go? What do they do? Pankuri Pathak, Ms. Zaidi, we'll come back to you. There's some problem with your audio. We'll try and fix that and come back to you in a moment. But Pankuri Pathak, you know, isn't this true? Government after government, land acquisition seems to happen in a flawed way. This is not just something new or specific to Jewar Airport. As the Samajwadi Party spokesperson on the show pointed out, it's happened in previous Congress governments as well. Why is there not a more foolproof, a more humane land acquisition policy in place?
Land Acquisition Act was made in the first place was that things should be simplified. Whenever you are coming up with a new project, there are some guidelines and there are some parameters that can always be followed. But what we saw in this particular case is how farmers were looted and scammed. Their land use was converted and they were not given the 4 times compensation that is mandated by the Land Acquisition Act. And I was listening to the BJP spokesperson. I think everything is out and clear in the open that the BJP wants to take credit for this project, and that is why things were carried out in such a hasty manner that houses were razed down. People were displaced, but they were not given alternate housing. You cannot give a person a patch of land and say that, you know, start your new life. You need to give some housing, you need to give some basic facilities. Forget compensation. Compensation is a different manner. But when you are displacing somebody, when you are breaking down their houses, when you are asking them to move to another place, you need to see how they will survive. Especially in weather conditions like these, you need to ensure that they have at least proper electricity, proper water supply. But just to take the credit before the upcoming Uttar Pradesh elections, everything was done in such a manner that the Prime Minister can be called and he can take the credit. I think that the Prime Minister is going there today. I think he should also meet these people because they are also the citizens of this country, and they have given up their land, their livelihood, their traditional way of life for the development of the state and of the country. So their basic needs should also be looked into, and nobody should pay the cost of development the way that these people are paying. They should at least get basic facilities that they have been denied.
Mr. Jatav, respond to that. How important was it to tout the success story of Jewar before the UP elections?
80% भूमि अधिग्रहण करने के बाद ही किसी प्रकार के शिलान्यास किए जाते हैं, ऐसा नियम है। इसके अलावा जो भूमि है उसमें 4 गुना पैसा देना, उसको करने के बाद ही ये शुरू हुआ है। वहां पर जेवर में बांगर गांव में इन सभी विस्थापितों को वहां पर मकान बना के दिए जा रहे हैं, काम चल रहा है लगातार। और जिस तरीके से ये आरोप प्रत्यारोप का जो दौर है, ये इसका कोई अंत नहीं है, मगर एक्चुअल फैक्ट्स ये हैं कि जो लोग वहां से विस्थापित किए गए हैं उनको रिसेटल करने के लिए बांगर गांव में स्थान दे दिया गया है। मकान बनाए जा रहे हैं, सरकार की तरफ से मकान बनाए जा रहे हैं। जो मुआवजा दिया गया है वो दूसरी जगह पे 4 गुना ज्यादा करके जो भी नया नियम है उसके मुताबिक दिया जा रहा है, ताकि वो लोग वहां पर जाकर के या किसी और जगह जाकर जमीन खरीद सके। तो इसमें कहीं कोई कोताही नहीं है, किसी भी जल्दबाजी में कोई निर्णय नहीं लिया गया है। जैसे अभी हमारे समाजवादी पार्टी के वक्ता बता रहे थे कि एक आगरा और लखनऊ जो इन्होंने
But Mr. Jatav, your own MLA is saying that it has been rushed. There has been some jaldbazi. Are you contradicting him then?
देखिए, मैं नहीं, जो विधायक हैं उन्होंने तो बात कही है कि पैंडेमिक के कारण से कुछ बातें रह गई हैं, उसको जल्द पूरा कर लिया जाएगा। मगर जो नियामक है उसके अनुरूप जो है इस कार्य को किया जा रहा है और खर्च जो उद्घाटन है उन नियामकों को ध्यान में रखते हुए सब किया जा रहा है, कोई जल्दबाजी नहीं।
All right, we'll leave it at that for now. We're assured that compensation will happen in due course. For the moment, though, the reality of the matter is that 100 farmers' families will be facing another winter out in the cold as the inauguration or the laying of the foundation stone takes place for this glitzy airport. 167 acres have been kept for real estate development within the airport. But for these 100 families, it seems there is no plot of land to build a roof over their heads.